Iceberg videos, the internet's favorite way to monetize autistic hyperfixations. For those of you unaware, my name's Isaac or Yitzchak, whichever you prefer. I make niche Jewish content online, and unsurprisingly, my autistic hyperfixation is niche Jewish content online. So, I've compiled this beauty right here, or possibly over here, I haven't edited yet, which is an iceberg chart of different Jewish holidays, starting on the top with the ones that just about everybody knows about, and ending on the bottom with the ones that just about nobody knows about. So we're going to go through them. This is entirely unscripted. If it sounds understandable, then that's almost certainly because of editing. I have done post facto. Enjoy. We start in the sky, the top tier, the ones that everybody knows, the big macharim. We're going to start with Pesaḥ, that is, Passover. You know it. It's the Prince of Egypt one. It's the Charlton Heston one. 7 days long in Israel, 8 days long in the diaspora. It's generally in mid-April. The specific date is mid-Nisan, which is the month in which barley ripens. The first day, we commemorate leaving Egypt with the Seder. The 7th day, we commemorate the splitting of the Red Sea. And the whole time, we don't eat any leavened bread or chametz, or really anything that is made of grains, which isn't made into matzah first. Hanukkah. It's spelled a million different ways. Here are the top 3. No argument will be accepted. It's a holiday which has a few different meanings, depending on who you ask. If you ask a lot of historians, they'll say Hanukkah is a holiday that celebrates the rededication of the temple after the Hasmonean victory and independence from the Seleucid forces of the mad King Antiochus IV. If you ask other historians, the whole story was made up as an excuse to justify a Hasmonean takeover. Don't ask historians about these things, they can never agree on anything. If you ask the rabbis, they say that it was because of a very cool thing that happened with some oil that lasted much longer than you expect. Because of this, a lot of the customs about Hanukkah revolve around oil. The traditional foods include pancakes, latkes, fried in oil, donuts, fried in oil, and other delicious greasy foods. People will light candles. It's always in midwinter or so. When you're young, you love it because you get presents, and then when you're older, you hate it because it's like, well, it's just Jew Christmas. And then you get older and like, it's actually not Jew Christmas. It celebrates the Maccabees, and that's cool. And then you get a little older and you're like, the Maccabees were actually terrorists who hated Western society. And then you get to my age and you're like, hell yeah, the Maccabees were terrorists who hated Western society. So that's my opinion on Hanukkah these days. Yom Kippur. This is one of the 2 high holy days. It is the 2nd, specifically. It falls on the 10th of Tishrei. Generally late September, early October. It is a 25-hour fast, evening to evening. The day on which the sins of Israel are forgiven. It is the only day of the year where 5 standing prayers are performed. Most days you do 3. On many festivals and on Shabbat you do 4. But on Yom Kippur you do 5. It makes it special. So that is that's the top tier dealt with. So let's go on to the last tier above the water. Let's start with Purim, or as I like to call it, Drunken Genocide Prevention Celebration Day. Purim is the day where we read the story of the Megillah, the story of Esther and Mordechai saving the Jewish people from destruction at the hands of the wicked Haman. That should be enough time to booing. The way Purim is celebrated is with the reading of the Megillah, giving gifts to the poor, hosting a special feast, and getting plastered. It in fact says in the Talmud that you are required to get drunk until you can't tell the difference between the phrases and Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is the other one of the 2 big Yamim Noraim, the 2 big high holidays. Twice a year, Jews will generally go to synagogue just for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Rosh Hashanah is the day upon which God is enthroned as king and judge and judges all of the creations. Rosh Hashanah is the Jewish New Year, which is why it is the first day of the 7th month. Jewish calendar is like that. It is said to be the day the world was created, or alternatively, the day that people were created, which is actually several days after the world was created. It is also the day on which the shofar is blown, that is, the ram's horn, possibly the most ancient musical instrument in continuous usage for a given definition of musical. Rosh Hashanah is often celebrated with meaningful foods for hope for a new year. The most well-known of these is an apple and honey, to represent the hope that the new year will be sweet, like honey. Shabbat. That's only in this column because a lot of people might not know the Hebrew term. They might think of it as the Sabbath. And also Christians might not know that it's not on Sunday, guys. What's the deal? Sunday is the first day. Sabbath is Saturday. It's the 7th day. Come on. So the way the Jews take Shabbat, or Shabbos in Yiddish, it's much more intense than Christians generally prefer. We don't do any work. There's a very specific list of 39 kinds of work which you are not allowed to do on Shabbat. I am not going to list them all here, but those are the things you're not supposed to do on Shabbat. It happens every week, so it's substantially more common than anything else on this list. But, you know, it's special. It's still considered the highest of the holidays, sort of. And now we're diving into the shallow water with Sukkot. Sukkot is, like Pesaḥ, one of the 3 major pilgrimage festivals. But while Pesaḥ is in Nisan, Sukkot is in Tishrei. It's in mid-April, generally a few days after Yom Kippur. Sukkot is one of the hardest holidays to explain to Gentiles. Here's the way it generally works. Explain Sukkot to me. So, we spend an inordinate amount of money on a lemon we can't eat, and then on an assortment of sticks from plants. Okay? And then we hold them up and we shake them around while we beg desperately for God to save us and give us water. All right. Then we all go into a lean-to that we built outdoors during a time of year where it is very quickly starting to get wet and gross. And we get incredibly drunk while we hope that someday a fish will die. I see. I know, it's the greatest holiday in the world. Yom Simchatenu, we love it. So that's Sukkot. If you go into a Jewish neighborhood in sort of mid-October, you'll see these little huts on roofs in backyards. Those are Sukkot. Those are the sukkahs, as it would be said in Yiddish. And those are where you are supposed to eat and sleep, although a lot of people don't sleep in it if it gets too cold out at night. And that's Sukkot. Going to the left on this page, we have Simḥat Torah. Simḥat Torah is a bit tricky. It is sort of Sukkot and also sort of not Sukkot. It's also even more sort of Shmini Atzeret and sort of not Shmini Atzeret. We're going to get to Shmini Atzeret in a bit. For now, I'll talk about what is specific to Simḥat Torah. It is the day where we finish the yearly reading of the Torah by reading the death of Moshe, and then we start it again by reading the 7 days of creation. It is often celebrated with dancing around in circles 7 times, singing a lot of songs, again, begging for God to save us, and again, getting quite drunk. The rabbis really had trouble imagining the idea of being happy without getting drunk. It's honestly a bit of a problem. In the diaspora, Simḥat Torah is the day after Shmini Atzeret, but in Israel, it's the same day, which means that this year, Simḥat Torah was not very fun. It was, in fact, quite miserable because of what happened on Shmini Atzeret last year. And I won't go into any more detail about that. You can figure it out on your own time. biShvat has come. It is the season of the trees. biShvat is the Jewish Arbor Day, the Jewish New Year for the trees. What it actually is, if you scroll back the clock, is tax day for fruit. It is the day when your fruit tithes are due. That was it. Over the years, though, the mystics in Tzfat in the 16th century thought it was more important, and they compiled a special celebration for it with a lot of wine and different fruit, and you eat the different fruit at different times, and it's called a biShvat Seder, because the mystics really like that stuff. Drinking, I mean, and also Sidarim. So that's biShvat. Nowadays, many people celebrate it with tree planting ceremonies and things like that. All right, now we're getting into the meat of this iceberg, the big part of the iceberg, and we got Shavuot. Shavuot, also known in English traditionally as Pentecost, but nobody will ever really call it that in Hebrew or among Jewish circles. Shavuot is 50 days after the second day of Pesach, according to the rabbinic count. The Karaites have their own way they do it. It's a whole mishigas. I'm not getting into it here. Shavuot in modern rabbinic practice is the day which celebrates the giving of the Torah. It was the day when Moshe comes down with the Torah and gives it to Israel. It is celebrated by staying up all night and studying Torah, and then in the morning, reading the Torah, reading several long Aramaic piyutim, reading the book of Ruth, and eating cheesecake. And it is by far my favorite holiday. I love Shavuot so much. I really wish it were more prominent than it is. Okay, so we got the Israeli, quote, high holidays, unquote. These are obviously not the, real high holidays, which are Yom Kippur and Rosh Ḥodesh, but these are, in terms of modern Israeli national holidays, the most prominent. We have Yom HaShoah, the Holocaust Remembrance Day, generally late April. It's near the end of Nisan. Yom HaZikaron, the beginning of ER, generally 2 or 3 days after Rosh Ḥodesh ER, so early May, and Yom Ha'atzmaut, which is always the day after Yom HaZikaron. So Yom HaShoah, like I said, is Holocaust Memorial Day. Yom HaZikaron is Memorial Day for soldiers, those who have fallen in battle. And Yom Ha'atzmaut is Independence Day. And they're all sort of clustered together in this period in late April, early May. Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av is, like Yom Kippur, a fast day. It is a 25-hour fast, meaning from evening to evening. Tisha B'Av is the saddest day in the Jewish calendar. It is a day on which you are not allowed to be happy. It was the day on which the temple was destroyed. It was the day on which the other temple was also destroyed. Many other bad things happened on Tisha B'Av. It is commemorated by, in the evening, sitting on the ground and reading the Book of Lamentations, the Book of Eicha, which is a very sad book. And then in the morning, reading an extensive series of lamenting poems called Kinot, which are also very sad, very dramatic, lots of really painful imagery, women eating their own children out of starvation, things of that sort. It's actually kind of a beautiful holiday, which sounds kind of crazy, but there's something incredibly moving about it to me. My favorite weird fact, which I always love to bring up about Tisha B'Av, is that one of the founders of labor Zionism as an ideology was Beryl Katznelson. This guy here, or possibly here. Again, I haven't edited it yet. And Beryl Katznelson was a secularist. He did not keep halacha almost at all. But there were 2 commandments that he was very careful to keep. He would not eat pork because he had a thing. He believed that the abstention from pork was the culinary heritage of the Jewish people, which, Muslims might disagree, but fine. And he would fast on Tisha B'Av. He would not fast on Yom Kippur, but he would fast on Tisha B'Av. He reasoned that Tisha B'Av is the only day of the year which is entirely devoted to Jews talking about how bad it is being in Galut. I'm not certain if I completely agree, but it is a fascinating take. Shmini Atzeret, that is sort of the last day of Sukkot and sort of its own thing. It's a bit complicated. There are certain ways that it is separate and certain ways that it is not. But once Sukkot is over, you have Shmini Atzeret, and then in the diaspora, you have Simḥat Torah the next day. And again, in Israel, those are smushed together on one day. Shmini Atzeret was the day last year when the world ended for most people in this country. At this rate, it's not even last year. It's like 2 years ago. Wow. Time sure doesn't make any sense anymore these days. Anyway, yeah, that's Shmini Atzeret, and it will never be the same again for the rest of my life. So that's really, really fun. Lag baOmer. Lag baOmer, the 33rd day of the Omer. Note, God, I am not counting. I know that it is not the 33rd day yet when I am saying this. Please do not assume that I am counting. Thank you. Lag baOmer is traditionally said to be the day that Shimon Bar Yochai, the great sage and legendary author of the Zohar, a book that he almost certainly did not actually write, died. It's his Hilula, or Yartzeit. He revealed his last great revelation on that date. It's celebrated by lighting massive bonfires in Meron, where he was buried. People will have archery contests. People will often, again, drink a lot. There's a custom to donate just an enormous amount of alcohol as a segula. It's a whole thing. I'm not going to get into it. Rosh Ḥodesh, this literally just means the start of the month, or the head of the month. Rosh Ḥodesh is the new moon. It happens once a month. Sometimes it's 1 day, sometimes it's 2 days, depending on exactly which month it is and when the moon is, and a bunch of things like that. Rosh Ḥodesh is a minor day. We say an abbreviated Hallel, and there is an additional service, but there's no prohibition on work. It is often associated with women, for reasons which I feel like are obvious when you consider that Rosh Ḥodesh happens once a month. That brings us to Tier 5, and we're starting with the 17th of Tammuz. Always 3 weeks exactly before Tisha B'Av. The period between the two is known as the 3 weeks, or Bein HaMetzarim, between the two stresses. The 17th of Tammuz is one of the minor fast days. Instead of being from evening to evening, it is from morning to evening. On the 17th of Tammuz, the walls of Jerusalem were breached. Apostamos burned the Torah. Who's Apostamos? Good question. Moving on. Moshe crushed the tablets when he saw the golden calf being worshipped. That's 17th of Tammuz. It's a pretty tragic day. It also sometimes falls on July 4th, which is always a bit awkward for American Jews, at least. Hoshana Rabba, more or less the last day of Sukkot. It is the last day of Sukkot, which is definitely Sukkot. The day after Hoshana Rabba is Shmini Atzeret. Hoshana Rabba is, in some ways, the culmination of the entire High Holy Day service. It has a crazy liturgy. There's some festival stuff, some weekday stuff, some High Holy Day stuff, all sort of mashed together. The culmination of which is that everybody shouts, Kol mevaser mevaser baOmer, the voice of the herald heralds and says, and then you take some sticks and hit the ground 5 times. It is weird. It is pagan feeling, if that makes any sense. It's like some deep sympathetic magic stuff there. It's amazing. If you ever have a chance to go to a Hoshana Rabbah service, I highly recommend it, even if you won't understand what is going on, and you will almost certainly not understand what is going on. It's just an experience. Fast of Esther. This is another one of the minor fasts. This one is the day before Purim, or when Purim is on a Sunday, the day before the day before the day before Purim, since you aren't allowed to fast on Shabbat or Friday, unless it's the 10th of Tevet, which we're going to get to. The Fast of Esther is unique among the minor fasts in that it will not, according to the rabbis, be nullified once the Messianic era comes and all the minor fast days are turned into feast days. The Fast of Esther will continue because Purim will continue. Of course, Esther didn't actually fast on the day of the Fast of Esther. She fasted in Nisan, according to the book, but, that's just details. The 10th of Tevet, Asara b'Tevet. This is always a few days after Hanukkah. It is sometimes exactly on Christmas, which that'll come back later. Spoiler alert for the 7th tier. But the 10th of Tevet commemorates the beginning of the siege of Jerusalem, and a few other bad things, as all of these fast days do. It is mentioned by name in the book of Ezekiel, where it says, Be'etzem hayom hazeh, on this very day. The only other fast which says Be'etzem hayom hazeh is Yom Kippur. And Yom Kippur is the only fast day, according to most halacha, where you fast on Shabbat. So the rabbis have extended this to say that if the 10th of Tevet falls on Shabbat, you also have to fast. The 10th of Tevet can never fall on Shabbat, so this is sort of a moot point. But if it did, then you might have to fast on it, maybe, if there is a machloket on the issue. In any case, the 10th of Tevet, in recent years, has been used by some rabbis as an alternative mourning day for the Shoah, since Yom HaShoah falls during Nisan, which is problematic because Nisan is a celebratory month and you really aren't supposed to be doing public mourning in it. It's really mostly just that they wanted a fast day to get more popular. I wouldn't have picked it. I think there are other days where I would have picked. Not on this list, but if they were to ask me, I would have said the anniversary of Kristallnacht would have been the day which I would have said should be a fast day. But again, they didn't ask me. Tu B'Av. Tu B'Av's an interesting one. The Jewish Valentine's Day, it's sometimes called. It is 6 days after Tisha B'Av. There's a few different stories as to why. One of my favorites is that during the period in the desert, all of the Jews would dig ditches for themselves and sleep in them on the night of Tisha B'Av, knowing that some of them would die, because every Tisha B'Av, some of them would die in order to fulfill the curse that they would all die in the desert. The 40th year, they all dug ditches, but none of them died, so they said, we must have miscalculated. So they kept on doing that. But when they saw the full moon in the sky, they said, oh, okay, so the curse is done, we're good. And because of that, they declared it a holiday and called it Tu B'Av. Other explanations include that it was a day to celebrate the beginning of the wine harvest, or that it was a day when wood was offered at the temple, or that it was the day when the prohibition on people from one tribe marrying people from another tribe was overturned. In the temple era, Tu B'Av would be celebrated with all of the women dressed in white linens, dancing out in the fields, and the men would look at it. Not going to touch that. The fast of Gedaliah is the third day of Tishri. This is because Gedaliah was assassinated on the first day of Tishri, but we can't fast on that because it's Rosh Hashanah. So we postpone it until after Rosh Hashanah, which is the third day. Gedaliah ben Achikam was the leader of the Jewish people who was appointed after the destruction of the first temple. His job was to start rebuilding, and he did his job. He really tried. He started to reorganize. People started to resettle and rebuild after the trauma of war. And then Gedaliah was assassinated by a hardline revisionist by the name of Yishmael ben Netanyahu, a name which definitely has no implications. And this guy, this Ben Netanyahu, believed that Gedaliah ben Achikam was some sort of namby-pamby, shit-lib traitor who sold off the people Israel in some sort of accord with the enemy, and thus incited death according to perhaps Din Rodef. And, because of that, because of this hardline radical who murdered the guy who was trying to make peace, the rabbis have declared a fast day, and the third day of Tishri is a fast. That is it for the fifth tier, which means it is time